So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Dorcas, I see the thumbs up. Dorcas is my business partner. She is here. Welcome, everybody, and I am delighted to host you this evening on our monthly webinar. And I just picked a few highlights because I wanted to highlight that the guest we have is an amazing person, is a person who has achieved quite some significant milestones, and therefore she will be pouring some of that wisdom, some of her expertise on this call. We will get to hear her journey. We will get to hear her take on the topic of the day, which is around self-discovery and career breaks. So Dr. Beth served as the first group director of strategic human capital at Equity Group Holdings, which, as you may know, has reached over 6 countries in East Africa. She also successfully developed and implemented award-winning scholarship and educational leadership programs for Equity Group Foundation, which has seen over 60,000 students achieve educational excellence. So what I love about Dr. Beth is how vast her portfolio is, from leadership to educational leadership and impacting students, impacting the future, which is close to my heart. She also established an initial framework for Equity Group Foundation to carry out ESG projects, reducing the organization's carbon footprint. So you can hear she's also in the SDGs, in climate change. She also conducted, my technology is misbehaving. She conducted and facilitated a comprehensive white paper focused on the Kenya government and development partners and its climate change approach with IFAD. She also created a systemic operating program and served as coordinator for the managing and implementation of deworming activities for innovations in poverty action, Deworm the World Initiative in Kenyan schools. And she was elected and served as the Africa representative for the World Association of Young Scientists. So her footprint is in leadership, it's in climate change, and it's in education. And we are delighted to have Dr. Beth Owero. She is dialing in from Yale University, her alma mater, School of Environment in New Haven, Connecticut. Dr. Beth, in Kenya, we say Connecticut. Connecticut. So for my Kenyan friends,
here is Connecticut.
Yes, so please put your hands together, your digital hands, if you want to go on camera and just clap and show us that you're clapping. That we'll also appreciate that very much. Welcome, Dr. Beth. Please say hi to us before we begin with the many, many questions that I have for you. Karibu sana. Say hi to us.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you should know, everyone should know that Tony is an MC. So in Swahili, anajua kuchocha. So some of those things that he's reading, I'm not sure who he's reading about. And definitely there's a lot of work that has gone towards preparing for this. I want to thank you for that, Tony. Thank you for the support in getting me in front of a camera. This is part of what he does best as a coach. And I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join in. I know it's 8 p.m. Kenyan time, so probably just preparing to wrap up your day. So I appreciate that. I believe I may have my mother on the call. I may have my older brother on the call. I have friends who have worked with, very dear friends in my previous role that I see on the call. So I appreciate you taking the time to join in, and I'm hoping that we'll have a fluid conversation that's very informal. And yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beth. So, ladies and gentlemen, because our theme is really about self-discovery and career change, and we picked Dr. Beth because in my interactions with her, I have learned quite a lot, and she took a bold step when she actually did a career break. So I will be asking her some questions. So the format of today's conversation will be that I'll be asking some questions, and then at the end of it, if you have your own questions, I will give you time to also ask. So Dr. Beth, allow me to begin with this question. How do you describe self-discovery?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Tony. And maybe just right off the bat, I think one of the things that's going to be clear, maybe even in this discussion, is I'm sharing views of what I have experienced. For me, what self-discovery means is like really, really getting to know yourself, where you are fully aware of who you are as a person and the things that you are proud of, the things that you bring to the table. But beyond that, I think for me, it was when you look at yourself and you're like, this is who I am, no kidding, this is me. Yeah. And embracing all those parts of yourself, I think, and understanding what it is that you know about yourself, what it is that you don't know, and also remaining curious about how can I reduce the number of things that I don't know about myself and add them to the things that I know about myself. And maybe lastly, I think we all grow up as young children into adults, and as you become more self-aware about yourself, you become conscious of the things that you're uncomfortable with. Maybe I'm uncomfortable, for example, of being in front of a camera, but how can I work towards that? So I think for me, self-discovery has been essential, especially during my career break, and also just working on those areas that I feel I could still be able to smoothen out.
Great. Thank you very much. So the follow-up to that would be a very related one, because I know taking a career break does not mean that somebody stops working forever and ever. How do you feel, especially on your journey, career, sort of self-discovery and self-awareness can help somebody in planning their career?
Great question. And actually, for this one, I think I'll credit a lot to something that I learned from my previous coach that I had engaged. And one of the things that she shared with me is that when you're thinking around the things that you are most proud of in terms of accomplishment, or even planning forward to what you want to do in your career, there are a couple of things that you need to consider. If you can take a grid and understand these are on one side, on the x-axis, these are the things that I am good at and the things that I am not good at, okay? Then when you're doing on the y-axis, I appreciate the things that you like and the things that you don't like. When you're building up that self-awareness, the area around on the top right, the things that you love, the things that you're good at, that's a space that you want to continuously do. In fact, when I read a lot about what people say, is that if you find something that you're passionate about and that becomes your work, it doesn't feel like work, it feels like play. So in that moment, you're actually totally in the flow. So being aware of what are those things that you're really good at. Like for me, in my case, I was still very passionate about creating opportunities for young people to pursue their careers, as well as education and training. So it was very natural for me to give my everything into the world of the Wings to Fly program, the secondary school scholarship program that I was privileged to run. The other part about the things that I like, but I am not good at. I don't know if I saw Morgan on the call. An example of this is I used to like being able to present data, but we'd have tons and tons of data that we're working with. But I was so poor in doing VLOOKUP formulas on Excel, So every time I would call Morgan, who used to be on my education team, to come and help me and learn. Until one time I figured out, I could actually make the time to actually learn this, because he'll not always be there for me. So personal development is identifying the areas that I like to do it, but I'm not good at them. Now, the last part, this part about what the things that you're actually not good at and the things that you don't like, you have no business being there, right? So get out of those things. Get out of the things that you feel that are very frustrating. You don't necessarily want to. In fact, you should not even call yourself that you have a career if you're spending time in those things. I appreciate there are times you may have to be in a rut and maybe you have to pay your bills. This is a temporary gig, but you want to get out of that space as quickly as possible. The last part is the thing that you're good at, but you don't like. So for example, I can think about doing reconciliations for travel expenses. So I would struggle with, you've come back from a trip or you have to do some documentation. Yes, I'm good at it because I'm good at keeping records, but I don't like it. So why can't you just delegate that and have somebody from your team support you on that. So those are the things I think when you think about self-awareness, is being very conscious about the things that you're good at and the things that you don't like, and then mapping towards where you want to spend a bit more time, especially on part B, the things that you want to develop and grow into.
Thank you, Doc. This is so well put. So the things that I am good at and the things that I like, I should focus on that. I should get away from the ones that I'm not good at and that I do not like. And I should also delegate the ones that, which ones should I delegate again, Dr. Beth?
The ones you're good at them, but you don't like doing them.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. So there's a curious question somewhere. Someone asked me to ask you, how did you get here? And then you have a fantastic story, and you are now taking a career break.
Sure. Good question. I grew up in Nairobi. The guy on the screen besides you is my older brother. I have two other siblings. I think they're also on the call, Ruben and Lois. And we grew up in Nairobi, typical household of, primary school, secondary school in Nairobi as well. And then I went to the University of Nairobi and studied chemistry. I then proceeded to Yale, where I'm currently taking the call from. I did a master's in environmental management. And for me, the shift from chemistry to environmental management is to pursue something that I was passionate about. I, for one reason or another, could not imagine what I could do with a chemistry degree, right? Do I get stuck in a lab in industry area mixing paint? We were very short of curiosity in terms of when we were growing up, when we were graduating, on what the options were. So, and I was very much inspired by Wangari Maathai. She had actually just been a visiting professor at the School of Art. So I was very eager to join the program. And came back into Kenya. I did a few odd jobs in the US, having graduated in 2008. The economy was not at the best, but I got a job with Innovations for Poverty Action. At the time, they actually had an office here in New Haven. And I think for me, the key thing about coming back to Kenya was getting to understand the challenges of combining health outcomes, especially among young children, as well as education or learning outcomes, because the program that I was working with at the time was concerned with looking at how can they reduce absenteeism among school children. And absenteeism was because was being caused by the big issue of stomach worms, minyoo ya tumbo. So anyway, once worked well in that program for about a year and a half, then got my feet wet in supporting students in the Equity Leaders program, apply for universities abroad on scholarship. And at the time we were targeting Ivy League institutions. And since I had come to Wern, my friend had invited me to just volunteer my time, and I was offered a full-time position there. At the time, I also worked very closely with a program on setting up our environment pillar, because we, again, were trying to identify as corporates, what else can you do? So we had an association where we were combining ourselves with the Kenya Wildlife Service, Nation Media Group, the Greenbelt Movement, and EABL to rehabilitate a forest block in Eburu. And again, to the question of, you're trying to reforest an area, but when you're going there, there's a donkey cart coming down with charcoal. So you realize that you're not making a very big impact. Remember, you've bussed yourself from Nairobi to Naivasha, and you bus out. So the question about now, can this be more towards energy transition, so that you can move people away from environmental destruction? So I decided at the time also to take a break again and go to do my PhD. I got a scholarship at an admission at Carleton University, which is in Ottawa. My focus at the time was in geography. It was a PhD in geography, but focused on climate change and food security. So again, the same question about how do people make the best use of the environment while they create their livelihoods, food security. And I started to do my fieldwork in Kenya. So every summer, summer holidays, usually between June and August, end of August, come to Kenya, do some fieldwork, again, continue to engage with the program at Equity and the scholars there. but also focusing on research in the Mount Kenya region. And so when I completed in 2016, for me, the passion that drove me, and again, speaking to the question I think you may have shared earlier about how do you navigate what you have learned and what you actually apply in school, I mean, in life and in your career, I feel very fortunate that I was passionate about promoting education and environment. And I got an opportunity to come back to Equity Group and serve as director for, I mean, as a team leader for education and leadership development. So again, that's where we were able to expand the Wings to Fly program. And so I have found that the passion, the things that you're passionate about tend to give you the biggest fulfillment in a career. It's good to have your technical expertise. It's good to have your degrees in other fields. And again, I'm always a lifelong learner, but gravitating towards the things that I was passionate about helped me to really develop myself and also develop the programs, our education programs. And at some point, then I was invited to see if I could support the strategic human capital of Equity Group. I think the assumption and the narrative was, you've done very well with the kids, can you now help support work with adults? So that's a long story and version of my transition and my journey. And I think a lot of what has shaped my career has been my passions, my values, and my belief system.
Thank you, Doc. I am excited because some of the guests who came here came because of my guests. Some of my other guests came because of you. And for those of you who are here for the very first time, I want to tell you a little bit about what we do at The Influential, because I want to ride on what Dr. Beth has just said. We actually help people discover those passions. We help them uncover their strengths and their personal values, and we call that your X factor. And at the end of this, I'll be inviting you to consider joining a cohort that we are putting together for finding your X factor. I like that Doc is saying that you find fulfillment doing what you love, and I am an absolute believer of that. I do this because I really love doing this. I'm in the career that I chose and that I really enjoy in my strength, and doing it within my values. So I really wanted to piggyback on that. So thank you, Doc. And if you have questions or you want some clarity, please put your questions on chat, although at the end of the call, I will allow you to ask other questions. But to move on, Doc, what have you discovered about yourself throughout your career? Because you have, I know you don't want to say this, but I'll say it for you. You have, in fact, someone had asked us a question that when they were registering, that you have achieved so much, So what did you discover about yourself as you are traversing the different facets of your career?
Good question. And I think, yeah, and I definitely encourage everybody to consider working with Tony on the X factor and discovering what it is that makes you tick. I think for me is the thing that has helped me the most is to remain infinitely curious. I remember in 2005, there was a commencement address by Steve Jobs that went viral. And it was at Stanford University. And what he was talking about is that one of the phrases that I like is that you should always stay hungry and stay foolish. And by that meant that, have a lot more curiosity about what you want for yourself, and also go after that. Always seek knowledge. I also liked from that clip that he said that if I can find, I'll actually just post it on the chat, that he said that sometimes when you're working towards your life, and again, remember he was talking to a graduating class, is you can always sometimes you don't see the whole path, but sometimes the dots, as he said, only connect when you look backwards. So if you're driven by your passions, if you're driven by your values, as long as you may not know what the outcome would be, but eventually when I look back, I think the dots connected very well. So again, remaining infinitely curious. And then the second one is about grit and grit, like really applying yourself 100% and applying myself 100% to what I do. I think to some extent, the ability to, be passionate about what you're doing, the ability to be passionate about the pursuit of knowledge for me, creating opportunities for others. And at times, and I know we'll talk at some point maybe about burnout, but one of the people who talked very well about the question of grit and the power of passion and perseverance was the professor known as Angela Duckworth, again, sharing the link on the chat. And she's saying that when they look at the people who have supported their careers and perhaps made the biggest impact in other people's lives, what has driven them is about grit, the ability to really apply yourself and in the face of challenges and being able to, again, be resilient. So I would say that those are the two things that have really helped me, curiosity and grit. And maybe lastly, just to add, is also the knowing also that it is okay to ask for help, right? It is okay if you don't know about something or you want to break into a new field, it's okay to reach out for help. In my case, I had the opportunity to work with a career coach. I have also had mentors who have guided me. So asking for help also goes a long way. And I've definitely benefited from that.
Great. Let me piggyback on that one, though. So asking for help is like asking for feedback. And I know that some of us are afraid to ask for feedback. How have you used, and I know this because we have had a chat with you around this, how can we seek feedback and how can we use it for improvement?
Good question. I think some of the things that perhaps when we think about our careers, we undervalue the role that the ones closest to you can play. By this, I mean your friends and your family. When you're getting feedback from people who are close to you, you can easily discount it and say, well, unanichochea tu ama, whether it's positive or negative feedback or feedback that allows you to improve on yourself. So the first thing for me, I think, is being able to create a safe space for people to actually give you feedback. You must be receptive to hearing back on the areas that you're doing well and the areas that you could also improve on. The examples that I can give, that many times I've been tasked with roles and maybe assignments that I thought were bigger than myself. But the belief that if this person thinks that I can do it, who am I to try and prove them wrong, right? So going ahead and actually riding on that person's faith. But two, when you're creating an opportunity or an environment that provides safe feedback, that's the time you also get to know that the areas where you have blind spots. I think I shared with you, Tony, that by the time before I took my career break, I had 3 people come to me, and one of them shared a series. I think she was in church, and she shared a series he's called Pastor Oscar Murillo, about Burnout. The series is called Fried and Frazzled. Again, I'll put the link to one of the videos there on the chat. And for the series ran, I think, for five sermons, and she kept sharing each and every one of them, and that really helped me, because one of the things that I took away even from that sermon series was that when you stretch yourself too much, you're like an elastic band. At some point, you'll stretch yourself, and that elasticity will not come back. The other friend from work who one time came and showed me a photo. This was in October, but she showed me a photo of an event that we were at in May, and said, what happened between May and now? Because you're looking quite pit. And the last one was calling me a bad photocopy of a bad photocopy, So creating an environment where you have people who can give you candid feedback that can also help, hold a mirror to yourself. And again, I already talked about being intentional and seeking like advisors or mentors and coaches. So those have worked for me very well, Tony.
Thank you. And I love that you're touching on burnout, because I think that's a subject that we don't give a lot of attention to. And I want to kind of delve a little deeper into that. Can people get burnout to doing something they enjoy? And you can tell us from your own experience. Yeah,
actually, maybe that's the worst part of it. When you talk about the A space, when you're in your A zone, there's an opportunity for you to, yes, be in the flow, But at times, being in the flow can also be a pitfall for you, because if you are not conscious about where you're putting your boundaries. Yeah, and I'll talk about my experience, especially in that part, because I was very passionate about what I was doing. I usually often would ignore what the clock would be, and I realized that what the time would be at the end of the day, and what time am I leaving the office. And bless my mother, would say that in her language, that like loosely translated, the rats will not eat your work if you leave it and come back the next morning. But the lesson for me there was, I tried to say, okay, maybe then if I don't, I can agree that I'm going to be leaving my laptop at work. So I don't carry my laptop, I don't carry my work home, so that if I leave the office, I have left work. But what would happen, what I realized would happen, so that was one of the things I did. The second thing was I removed all email notifications from my phone, work email notifications from my phone, so that I only checked on emails when I needed to. But what I realized was that I put a boundary, but I did not respect it. I would often then, instead of knowing that I'm not going to carry the laptop home, I would end up extending the office hours, working until 8 p.m. Or 9 p.m. or often quite late. So again, when you're very passionate about something, it can also lead to burnout, because if you don't put barriers, or you don't put boundaries, or put boundaries and you don't respect them. And again, one of the other things that I have learned, maybe from my experience, if I can just also share that, is there's a term, as I was reading and preparing for this, that I came across, that is called middle lessons. Middle lessons, think about the way you say the word adolescence. And this was from a Harvard Business Review article. I think when we get to the peak of our careers, or when your career is really taking off, and I think they put their number at maybe when you're in your early 30s, there can be a time you start becoming a bit restless. And again, whereas that time can be a time of frustration, you're confused about what your next options should be. You're also feeling a little bit alienated, because maybe you're so invested in your career. I must say that I think for women, sometimes we are more emotionally attached to our roles than what I have observed than men. And so that can be also an area where you're getting to feel a little bit of burnout. However, middle lessons is not always a bad thing. It can be a time for you to hit pause, new self-discovery, or setting out a new direction. And there are examples that article was sharing, and again, I'll put it in the link as soon as I'm able to get out of SlideShare mode, that there could be a time where you're feeling that you've sacrificed a lot for your career, or you're a very highly productive individual, you're very active at home, you're also active in the office, so you're feeling torn between that. You've lost your zeal and your zest for your job, or that you're feeling that my assignments right now are not, I don't find them challenging, they're no longer exciting, or maybe the organizational structure has changed, or for whatever factors that have happened, you feel like your career has stalled. So those could be some of the things that point towards both burnout, but also this phase where sometimes as a working professional, you find yourself trying to navigate transitions, either in the workplace, also in your own personal life.
Thank you. I hope that somebody who is listening here and who is really passionate, and I'm one of those people, I hope that we are all taking notes that you can actually burn out doing something you love. And I was just taking some notes about setting boundaries. That is step one, but keeping them, respecting the boundaries is where you can start protecting yourself from now going to the excesses. Thank you very much for that. So in terms of now young people who may not realize that they're burning out, what are some of the telltale signs?
Yeah, very, very good one. And again, like I said from the onset, I think I'll share a lot of what my experience has been, because what it ends up being, it manifests itself in very, very different ways. But often the two most common things that I have found is physically, you're exhausted, you're physically exhausted. And two, you are also suffering from, which is actually, we call it like an oxymoron. You're really exhausted, but you cannot sleep. you're tired, but you're not able to zone out or to rest. So I think one of the things that comes up is that you have insomnia, and then two, for my case, I suffered from a lot of what they would call irritable bowel syndrome. Where you actually have you're always feeling as if your body is not itself, your bowel movements are not good, but also insomnia. I remember I used to order a lot of this sleep time tea, and I tried to use a lot of that. I would put on my YouTube video sleep music. You'd put some sleep music from YouTube to try and drift off to sleep. But other things that I have seen, and even from literature, is about feeling detached from work, or being cynical. I've seen people who have become like quite irritable in the workplace. You're feeling that your productivity and efficiency is also going down, and also even just losing that creative vibe that perhaps you probably had. And again, a lot of this burnout can be caused from issues like lack of support, or you may have experienced an imbalance between your work and your personal life, or even some form of prolonged stress. Sometimes you may have a project assignment that is quite intensive, and that can also really wear you out. And I think one of the articles, I think about in 2021, right at the height of COVID, there was a research that was carried out by Indeed, this online magazine, and they interviewed about 1,500 people, and they were saying that 52% of people were experiencing burnout. And for many of them, they said that about 67% of them were saying that it became worse during COVID, because, again, remember, that was also the time that we were working from home. You had to navigate both learning at home for the kids, plus your own work. And then there was no boundary. It also helps to, like what I was trying to do, leave your laptop at work. And so your work ends there, you come and find it tomorrow and go home and do the rest of your life. So again, the way in which we work has also affected that. So for young people, it is acknowledging those early signs of burnout.
Okay. That is very, very helpful. Let's now switch gears and talk about career breaks, because you've taken two. I didn't even realize when you went to take your PhD, there was a break there until you told it here today.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of us, one, we fear taking career breaks. Two, we don't know how to plan for them. And three, we are afraid of them. From your experience, talk us through how you planned and how and let's see what we can learn from what you've already done around the two breaks. I'm assuming it's only two, maybe there are more than two, but the breaks that
Yeah, I was joking with my friends that this career break can actually now become a career in itself. But yeah, so let's talk about the one that I'm currently on. I think one of the things that I realized, and when I started sharing about my experience and my journey, for a lot of women, by default, you have a career break when you're having to take time off for maternity or having a child, and again, or even for men, when you have a very short, like in Kenya, I think it's 2 weeks for paternity. But what I have realized, and what I realized for myself, was that it helps to put pause. I think for me, I started planning mine quite a while back. And the idea was that I had spent a lot of time doing things that I was really passionate about. And again, going back to this idea of adolescence, what do I want to do for the rest of my life in terms of a career? And to be honest, I mean, we can all be honest here. Sometimes we work because we want to be able to afford a certain lifestyle. Maybe you work because you want to be able to afford taking a vacation, or you want to be able to have a lot more time with your family. I personally don't love work. Yeah. If there was a way to afford a nice lifestyle without having to work, please sign me up, right? But when I'm planning for mine, one of the things that usually is a big myth is around that you cannot be able to afford one. And so I took steps to actually work with the financial planner I was introduced to by my coach to Nabo Capital, and I worked with this gentleman who helped me really go through, first of all, areas even for my own, without a break, what are the areas that I can improve on in my own financial planning and my own allocation of resources that I had. And that was very helpful because it allowed me to see, oh, actually, there's a lot more that I can do with the resources that I have. But even then, I can be able to provide a cushion for myself in case I ever wanted to take a pause and think about what I want to do next. Here in the US and a lot more other developed countries, breaks are usually there's something they call the gap year from when you finish secondary school before you join university. So it's a very common thing for people to take young people to take a gap year because you want to figure out before I go to university, what do I want to do? Maybe I want to travel, right? So the first myth that I had to bust was about financial planning. The second one was what it is that I wanted to, again, rediscover and reconnect with. I love traveling. I love hiking. And I'd been walking around with a list of, bucket list of places that I wanted to see. And having this career break has helped me to see, I can start actually addressing and going back to some of them. Thirdly is projects. There are a lot of projects sometimes you hold down and you hold back. One of the things that I again used to travel and to take a lot of pictures. Would go sometimes even on safaris in Kenya, take really good photos, but you leave them in the camera, you never go back to look at them. So now having the time to actually do some of those things. Maybe the last concern that I had was also how do you keep in touch with the world? Because at some point, for sure, you'll go back to professional life or to a career. And for me, I think being able to stay in touch with what's going on, either on LinkedIn or on social media, as well as on the newspaper subscriptions, whether it's Wall Street Journal, New York Times, just so that mentally you're also still finding intellectual engagement or stimulation. So far it's been good. Actually, Tony, today is exactly 6 months because I walked out on 31st of January. So today is exactly 6 months, and it's just a coincidence that we're having this call. And I think, honestly, maybe by sharing my story, I have had so many people come up to me, both on call or on text or even on LinkedIn, just sharing their own stories as well. And I think there are times where we, as professionals, stigmatize taking a break, right? My speaking out also allows you to appreciate, or hopefully allows others to appreciate that it is okay. It's okay to do it.
Thank you. Yes. I work with a lot of young people, and they don't even know what to say on their CVs when they take a career break. So it is very good for us to have ambassadors, people who are speaking about this and making it and demystifying it, so that when people take a career break, they can be comfortable. And thank you for giving us ways in which we can plan for that. All right, I have a question that was sent to me by a young person who was asking how they can be able to showcase their potential when the opportunities that are out there are targeted to people who are experienced. I know that may not be in the purview of what we were saying, but they said, ask Beth. She's very influential in diverse fields out of her background, so she can tell young people something around that. So what would you tell that person?
Very good question. And actually, it's a question that if we would have benefited, you and I would have benefited if we had access to the potential that is presented these days, especially on digital platforms. Right now, what I have found, and to be honest, I explored a lot of this when I was on my career break, is there are a lot of opportunities to be able to build a brand for yourself and build and showcase what it is that you're really good at. I'll give an example that when I spend time on TikTok, the accounts that I follow are actually accounts that help me learn a skill. Again, the idea that you have to figure out everything on your own is a fallacy. You could always ask for help. I remember when I was preparing some of my YouTube videos, I'd see one of my former colleagues, a young man, had done a video about some land that he was selling or promoting. And I liked some of the edits that he had done. So I reached out to him and I asked him, how do you do this feature? And he told me, oh, you can use actually like Adobe Express or an ebook that my colleague, former colleague on the call, Lydia, had done, and ask her, how do you do this? And she would share information and feedback on how to do that. So for young people, it's about asking if you want to move in a certain direction. Yes, you may not have a job at the moment, but you can be able to ask about it too, showcasing your portfolio. There are very many platforms that you can showcase what it is that you're good at. If it's around content creation, if it's around some of the projects that you have worked on, they also physical ones. The worst part is that if you don't speak about what it is that you do, nobody's going to come and find you, you know. And so whereas we have a lot of young people who are out there looking for jobs, there are a lot more opportunities for them to showcase their talents and even find non-traditional work, whether it is online or on other platforms, that allows them to continuously engage professionally until they find that dream job that they want to pursue. I hope that is helpful, because it's not a straightforward answer, but I find that if you remain curious, if you remain working on improving on your skills and showcasing what those skills are. In my case, I think I shared with you, Tony, I worked on a personal website, because again, it was also helping me to refine what it is that I want for myself and what are the areas that I can say that I am an expert in or would want to continue furthering my career in.
Okay, thanks. So if you have questions, please put them on the chat. I will be looking there, and I actually want to start going there now. If there's anything that you feel you wanted some clarification on, you could ask or go off mute. So there's a question here. Give me a sec.
By John? Yeah, I see that.
Yes, so you can see it. All right, you can go ahead and just take it.
Yeah, so sure. John, so asking about, is it okay to do a consultancy while in a career break in order to cover the gap on CV, like volunteering in an organization, and what does that does something that you love or like? Absolutely. I think, and that's one of the other things that even when you're going back now to a real job after your career break, you can actually showcase that you are not just resting, and there's no problem with just resting, right? But doing things like volunteering for some of those organizations, and in terms, especially in areas that you're passionate about, allows you to also connect to the other side of your brain. So if assuming that one side of your brain is thinking professional and all that, there's another side of the brain that feels that you're giving back to society, that's speaking to your softer side. I believe that's what a break sometimes can also help you do, balance or help one area catch up with the other one. So it is absolutely okay to do that. Consultancies can also be good, because consultancies now force you to think and act like an expert. And again, it also allows you to say that, you know, this is how I would deliver results for a client. This is what I would price, what my expertise and my skills are. So again, very good idea to be able to do that. And who knows, actually, when you venture into that world of consulting, you may not even go back into traditional employment. So it's again a time for you to test out some of these ideas that you'd want to explore and have never had the time to do it because you had a full-time employment job.
All right, there's one that is in my direct message. How did Dr. Beth navigate and feel about the different roles that seemed out of her career path, like HR or a chemistry expert?
Hey, yeah, good question. There was a time there was this emoji that came out that says where, right? So for me, the where is when you're dealing with, when I transition into my HR role. One, I think I really, really loved the challenge. One of the biggest things that I took away from that, and and even just navigating that transition is that there's a lot that goes into learning how you relate with others, right? There's a lot that goes into when you're in a career, you need to understand whether your role as a team leader, are you there as a manager or are you there as a leader? For the previous work that I had done in education, I was extremely privileged for two things. One, I was very passionate about what I did, but two, we had built out a team that was very cohesive. Had about 5 or so different dockets, whether it was scholarship management, mentoring, scholar welfare support, and all that. But everybody was extremely good and passionate about what they did. So it was very easy to lead and work with that team. And again, when we'd have events, everybody comes in and just understanding how the structure of managing a large programs in education work was very helpful. The transition, I think, to HR again was quite challenging, but in a good way, because one, now you're working alongside peers. You're trying to also provide guidance on maybe some of the structural issues that were being improved on at the time. But beyond that, I think what I found helpful was continuing to learn, especially around understanding the different types of leadership and management. Because now you're working as a coordinator, you're leading people who lead teams. So I think relating that back to, I think, what I had said to my traditional education, or rather my education and training, the thing that I took away from my education and training that I brought into my career was learning how to learn. I remember when my first week with my PhD supervisor in 2016, the first things that he taught me was that when you think about life and when you think about a PhD, it's like a funnel. You have all these things that are coming in. What you need to do is sieve out and identify what are the things that you want to keep. And I find that that lesson was very helpful for me even in a career, because there are so many pathways that you can choose, but choosing one that you can commit to. And again, if you remain guided by your personal belief systems, your values, the things that you're passionate about, irrespective of whatever environment or sector you're in, you will always flourish, or you'll always find a way to make the best out of it.
Okay. So I just want to piggyback on that one a little bit, Doc. I also, because of part of my work, I also believe that life is transitions, and transitions are like seasons in a series or like chapters in a book. So you can, every chapter is complete. It has got its suspense, it's got its irony, it's got every element that makes a book worth reading. So it does make sense what you're telling us, that for that, as long as you have a guiding and north, you can navigate even things that for that season when you're doing something that you don't particularly enjoy, but do not live there anyway. Yes.
Okay.
So there's
I agree.
Okay, go ahead. There's one more from JW. Can people in self-employment and or running a private business take career breaks? And if so, what would you advise them to make as their considerations?
Okay, good question. And I think they should. There's an opportunity. I'm an advocate for taking a career break for the reasons that I have described that have worked for me. But I think also when you think about people like yourself and maybe like Jesse, who are maybe in self-employment, is at some point when you're in self-employment, perhaps you have a bigger opportunity to blend in your work and your life, right? Rather than in employment where most of your work hours or your time is dictated or demanded by your role, especially in high performing individuals. So the question is still valid and still relevant for people to consider career breaks even when they're in private employment. And for me, if I was in that situation, I think what I would be looking at is integrating those breaks within my everyday work. So if your work does not require you to be domiciled, for example, in Nairobi, in a particular office building, and you have an opportunity to and maybe your passion is around travel and you have an opportunity to do that, you can incorporate that and say, maybe this week I will be working from Los Cabos, Mexico, as I enjoy my vacation, but also planning your work around that. So I feel that the people who have a bigger opportunity to embrace career breaks are actually the ones who are self-employed, because you have a better opportunity to dictate how you allocate your hours.
Thank you very much. We are listening.
Yeah. I see a question also from Jane. Greatest fears as you took your career break, and how did you navigate? Biggest, actually, it's not necessarily a fear, it was a concern. I was very challenged in switching off my mind. I would, again, for almost a month and a half, or yeah, about a month or 6 weeks, I would still dream and think around about work. And as time has progressed, now my fear is that I think I'm enjoying this too much. You know, will I be able to? And I appreciate Tony for bringing me back to talk, because it allows me to again talk about work. But there could be a risk that this can be too enjoyable, and I may extend it longer than I wanted. But I think just navigating that is also reaching out to friends. I am forever grateful to the friends and families who have had a chance to visit and host me. I spent about a week, 50 days with a friend of mine in Maryland, and just being able to have people to talk through about what my career is, what was the concerns that I had going into the break, has also been very helpful. So relying on my friends and families and family has been what has helped me to navigate any of those concerns or fears that I had.
Thank you very, very much. Awesome. Is there any other question, any comment so far? I hope you're finding value. I am finding a lot of value as a person who sometimes struggles to take breaks. So
maybe you can talk about that, Tony, because you're self-employed. What insights can you share around planning for breaks?
So mine is a work in progress, and I have seen some people who know me well as my partner here and her best friend. They're here and they know the way sometimes I struggle to detach. So what I've been doing that is not the best way. So this was very helpful for me. I do take a day off occasionally, and like you're saying, I can work. Sometimes I work from anywhere, especially when the demands of my work do not need me to be physically somewhere. Someone is actually laughing at me in my DM because they know this struggle, and they have a person in their home who has similar struggles. So my wife has been trying to get me to take a day off. So what she has been doing is planning. It hasn't happened, but she's planning for an annual leave. So where I can take a week off, where I can take some 2 weeks off, something like that. So at least I have someone helping me with that. Because if left to my own designs, I don't do it very well.
Okay. No, that's a good one, and I think that's where now the role of family and friends comes in, because they can pull you back from the precipice of falling into a crack, or going over a cliff. Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Someone is saying thank you to you for your great insights, and Jane is also saying something about which gender, for which gender is it easier to take a break and at what age?
Oof, okay. Well, and I think that as somebody who doesn't have like a traditional family of my own in terms of a husband and kids, yeah, I may not be able to weigh in too much, especially if it's in a household setting. But I think, just generally speaking, maybe women struggle a little bit more than men, because women, as I mentioned, we seem very attached to our jobs. You think of your job as an extension of yourself, and sometimes we stay a bit silent for too long, even when things are not working for us in the workplace. So I find that men have a bigger ability to actually, if something is not working for them, they just walk away from it. They're more courageous than women are, right? I think in terms of age, like I mentioned, what I'm seeing curious is that for the younger people, the Gen Zs, they're less likely to stick around for things that are not working for them. I think as we have evolved as society, we have seen younger people being able to push the boundaries on what they want for themselves and being able to push for things that work for them. So for us, having been now on a career break, I can tell you that there are a lot of women in their late 30s and early 40s who are choosing this path as well, just to hit pause because you want to reset yourself. So late 30s, early 40s, I at least know personally close friends of mine, about 5 or 6 of them who have chosen to do that. So that's generally, I think, the age group. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So over to you. I think I know we're at the top of the hour. I see there's one of question, but I am able to take these offline. Yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please allow. I know we are on top of the hour, but I think we need to answer this.
Okay.
A bit. There's one person asking whether they should take a different degree as they like doing a bachelor's and master's in psychology and then doing a PhD in leadership. What's your take on that? I think that one is really important. And then the one from Dr. Lydia around the fear of coming back after the break. So those two, I feel, you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. And I can answer that. And John, happy to have this conversation on the side as well. I think what helped when I took a break between my master's and my PhD is understanding that now when you're going into your PhD is you actually want to go into something that you're keen on and you're actually passionate about, because it's a long-term commitment between 3 and 5 years to be able to pursue that. From my experience, when I came to Yale, it was a professional school, meaning that most of the students who were admitted had at least 3 years work experience between bachelors to when they were being admitted. We had a class of about 70. There were about maybe just 10 of us who came straight from undergrad. I was one of them. So I was in a class where people already knew what it is that they had wanted to do because they had already tested and they were already really passionate about getting to the master's program. They knew exactly what they were getting into. So I could see that the only way that I could work with and maybe compete or be at the same level is by relying on my quick learning ability as a younger person. When it comes to your PhD, again, irrespective of whatever field you choose, whether it's psychology or in leadership, be guided by the things that you'd want to apply yourself thereafter. Again, it may align in your case, maybe that's what you'd pursue later on. In my case, I did climate change and environment, and who knows, my next role could be in that. My next role could be focusing on that. I think for Lydia, I love the question. And I think that's where the idea of planning comes into place. So, for example, if you had planned to take a career break for 6 months, for 12 months, for 2 years, preparing well in advance of when you want to re-enter. Yeah, because again, depending on what level you're at, some of these roles can take a longer time to land into. So if you're my thoughts, and I think maybe as good practice could be that if you are taking a 6 month break, probably at the end of your 3rd month, start thinking about what job do I want to return to, and prepare yourself for that. It may be going into consulting, it may be going into another job, but start now working with potential recruiters or applying for jobs, or even your networks. There are some things that we have done. Maybe we've connected along, we've made a lot of connections in our careers, but you've never really leveraged them. So could this be the time that you now tap into them and ask them, I'd want to move into this field, could you make an introduction? I have done that, and I have found that even just for the sake of keeping my professional networks alive, you get somebody who says, oh, there's an opportunity here, would you be willing to consider it? So that allows you to break. One, you have created a cushion for yourself, maybe financially, you have enough for 6 months to 1 year. And then 2, starting early enough to prepare yourself for re-entry. And I think that allows you to address whatever fear that you would have. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Doc, for that. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us to go over the hour for a few minutes. Please don't go, don't leave just yet. I wanted to, Dr. Beth, do you want to talk about your website, or for the people who
Well,
would like to know what you're up to and stuff like that?
yes. So yeah, good one. I think I've been sharing a lot on LinkedIn. I would encourage each of you to follow both Tony and I, or connect at least, because that allows us to also strengthen our networks. But one of the things that I did, and I'll be sharing it on my next post on LinkedIn, was using a project to define what I want for my next career, or what I want to be known for. I built a website that focuses on one area is talking about just my profile. The other section is around sharing this journey about the career break, and the other section is sharing things that I am passionate about. Again, the idea was to compel me, and this is also something that I learned from Tony, that you need to also continue working on your profile, especially as you go up in senior levels of leadership. Sometimes you lose your identity to the organization that you're working with or you're working for. At the end of the day, you need to be able to stand out as an individual, and know what it is that you're good at, and what are the things that you're passionate about. So this has been a pet project, building a website and showing some of the areas or elements about my profile, my work in education, and my work in leadership development. And again, sharing insights, which are some of the blog posts that I've been talking about around career breaks. So yeah, thank you, Tony. But I'd really love to continue engaging and connecting with people, especially if we can be able to connect on LinkedIn. And I'll share my link, my profile on the. Oh, thank you. You've already done that.
I've already shared your profile, LinkedIn profile. I've shared the website, and I've shared Dr. Beth's new YouTube channel. And some of these things she started doing while on her career break. So it is very interesting. And she's so hands-on. She built the website herself. So it's interesting, some of the things that you discover. And I was one of her cheerleaders when she was doing those things. I was just amazed. Such a senior person, and then all of a sudden you're doing things that are out of what you are doing completely. And it's just an amazing journey that she has walked since she took the break. So please take a look at those. And Joy, allow me to ask you to connect with Doc so that you can have this chat around the question you asked, because I put her LinkedIn there, if that's okay. Joy Mwendwa, is that okay? Because of time.
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's why I've put those things, because we actually intend for you to get in touch with us for real. So allow me also to put our YouTube channel there and our website. And the last thing that I want to do before, Dr. Beth, I want you to be preparing what we call here in Kenya a parting shot. That will be the last thing we do before I let these people go. I want to share, I had talked about us having what we are calling the Find Your X Factor course, which I feel is related to some of the things that Dr. Beth was sharing about finding your values, finding your strengths, and finding your passions. So we have a course that we are offering as the Influential. If you reach out to me, I'll send you all the details. I'm just putting out the flyer there. It is a 4-week course. It is costed at 16,000 Kenya shillings. That is the early bird, which is ending tomorrow. And then the normal price will go to 18,000. We begin on 8th. So if you're interested in finding your sweet spot, finding your X factor, we also call it your unfair advantage, your passions, your values, and your strengths, get in touch with us and we will register you for this one. We feel it's a fantastic thing, and it helps individuals come out of places where they're not being valued and find and do work that they find more meaningful, work that they're more passionate about, work where they're using their strengths, and work where they're living within their values. All right. Dr. Beth has corrected me for the website. She did receive a little bit of support. We appreciate that person for that. Yes. So, Dr. Beth, what
Yeah.
is the shot?
So my parting shot, I cannot speak highly enough of being able to take a pause when you need to. I think for me, there's a lot of strength in understanding yourself and appreciating what your strengths are, knowing the parts that you're continuing to work on as an individual. Because as you're saying, even from your poster, it gives you an unfair advantage. I think a lot of us sometimes get lost in careers because you do the roles that are assigned to you without necessarily reflecting on what that builds in you and how you're growing as a person, as an individual. So keeping an eye on what you're doing as a person, keeping an eye on the strengths and the areas that you still need to work on for yourself is something that you can continue to do even as whether you're on a career break or not. And maybe lastly, I hope I can count on all of you to help me integrate back into a career, because I also need to learn that it's not just about travel and fun, but the one thing that I'm continuing to work on is how do I integrate these good practices that perhaps I have learned, maybe like better sleeping habits, regular exercise, when I'm back on a full-time career. So work in progress. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beth. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your expertise. And thank you for being so kind to come from your sabbatical to come and talk to us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the program. Thank you so much for availing your time. Let's give Dr. Beth her flowers. Let's clap. Let's just tell her something nice as we finish, and then we can leave at our own pleasure. Thank you. I'm seeing claps and
Thank you,
hearts.
everyone.
I hope you're seeing that. We are appreciating.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes.
And thank you, Tony. Yeah.
Thank you, Itao.
Sante.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lydia. I see your comment there. Thank you, Dorcas. Joy.